Live from Houston, Texas. At least I am. I'm live from Houston, Texas. Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of What Makes You Tick. I'm really excited. This is number 30, so I'm extremely excited, and the guest I have is amazing. Before we dive in, just a few quick housekeeping notes to make this a great experience for you. And today's amazing guest, and I am excited that you get to connect with this gentleman. But first, as usual, this is an interactive live session, so we encourage you to participate, ask questions, and connect. To ask a question, just drop it in the chat. I'll bring insight, or my guest will bring insight to anything you want to have you want to enter into the conversation. We'll use LinkedIn's DM and the comment section for the event's posting for any behind-the-scenes coordination. So feel free to message me if you have any technical issues. I say that all the time. I don't know that I can really help you, but just do it anyway. If you get disconnected, simply rejoin. LinkedIn will do this from time to time. We know that many of you listeners are commuting or working, although there's a lot of y'all that are off right now. So we're encourage you to listen to however you can, or to engage however you can. Even quiet listeners are an important part of this community. Thanks for being here. Now let's get started. Today's guest is someone who didn't just ride the wave of podcasting and new media. He helped build the ocean. I was introduced to him a couple of weeks back by Rena. She was my guest, Rena Friedman Watts, who we had a short call, and within minutes, I knew that this voice was a voice that needed to be, or my audience needed to hear. He's a true pioneer in digital media, over 24 years of shaping how creators show up, grow audiences, and actually make the industry work, long before podcasting was cool. From the early days of Web Talk Radio, World Radio, to leadership roles at Microsoft, PodcastOne, StreamYard, Spreaker, and more. Has been at the forefront of every major shift in online media, including AI, which we'll dig into. He's the founder of Spoken Life Media, co-founder of the Passion Struck Network, chair of the Podcast Hall of Fame, and host of shows like New Media Show, Spoken Human, and the Pro Creator Playbook. If you've ever hit record and wondered what actually matters next, this is a conversation of masterclass. Few buzzwords and way more wisdom. My guest today was inducted into the Podcast Hall of Fame in 2017, and it will be an amazing show as we discover what makes Rob Greenlee tick. Rob, it's awesome to have you on. Give the listeners a little insight into what makes Rob tick.
Well, Bryan, first of all, it's great to be here. I feel honored to be on your live show. I'm a huge fan of doing anything live, especially on StreamYard, as you might imagine, because I do that with the same thing. So it's always great to be able to talk to people and be able to reach people through this medium of podcasting, or now video podcasting, and this whole live thing. And I was live on the radio for many years as well. So the whole live concept is something that's been relevant to many people via radio for many years. And it kind of started to decline a little bit as people started to really get involved in on demand, right? So that really cuts to the chase of what my career and my work in this medium has really been all about. It's really kind of transcending eras of media of sorts, going from radio, doing a lot of TV stuff in the early years as well, and then also working on TV at Microsoft, and then also kind of leading the podcasting side of the Microsoft Zune for 7 years, and kind of led that platform across multiple areas, from big screen televisions through Windows Media Center to the Windows Phone platform, and then the Zune HD type of portable media players, which seem to be coming back in popularity again here more recently.
I see it all the time.
Yeah, as the new generation starts to think more about cutting the cord and trying to go back old school. So it's an interesting trend line that I've seen happen over many years in the podcasting space. Started out really heavy into video podcasting via RSS. And a lot of people don't even know what RSS is anymore. So it was one of those things that I spent my whole career trying to teach people about what RSS was. And now we're in this era of people don't care about RSS is really what it boils down to. And And really, I always thought that people wouldn't care about RSS eventually anyway, because it was the way computers talk to each other. It wasn't the way humans talk to each other. So
Right.
it was just a conduit to deliver content that communicated with humans. And I always thought it would kind of not be important, but now it's kind of coming back in its importance for a lot of people, especially on the content creation side, to understand. So that's kind of a good nutshell of the things that I've been thinking about for many years, and live has been always a big part of that for me.
Wow, that's awesome. Look, the story, like there's so many words in there that you just said, and I go, huh? But no, I love that. What did you do in radio?
I started a radio show back in 1999. So I walked into a Seattle area radio station. I asked them if they had a technology talk show at the time. This was back toward the kind of middle to the end of the .com era.
Yeah.
And just walked in there. You know, I was working in search engine optimization at the time. I was helping small businesses build their online marketing, and because that was becoming more and more a thing at the time with Yahoo and with the platforms that were around back then. This small businesses were using that just like they are still today. You know, there's, you know, Facebook, and there's all these platforms now that people use as really their primary way of marketing their small and large businesses now. But that was, I was working in last, so I just walked into a radio station and said, do you have a show covering this topic? And I would love to do one with you. And I paid to have my show on the air every Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. And so I had a couple of friends around me, and my wife went in and did the show with me as well in the early years. Actually, if you go to robgreenlee.com and go to my Web Talk Radio archive, you can hear one of the earliest shows that I did on that page. It's not via RSS or a podcast, but it's more like what I did back in that era, which was I made my show available as an MP3 download. So that kind of is in a nutshell.
and this was in, because we were talking before, this was in Seattle, or the Seattle area, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Actually, at the time I was living in Tacoma, which is a little bit south of Seattle. But I went on a local, radio station and did the show there. And really, for me at that time, it was just a base in a studio to go in to actually create the content. And then I took the content out of there on a cassette tape and I played it through a $19 cassette player into my computer to make an MP3 file. And that's what I made available off my website at the time.
Oh my gosh. So. I've spent the holiday, because I'm off for 2 weeks as a teacher. So I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm cleaning out my stuff. I actually found my tape player, my dual cassette deck. Yeah, right. And I bet you, and I put it behind my stereo just so I might hook it up later, one of these days, to see if my tapes will still play in it.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. And so we were talking, you grew up in Seattle. How was the tech back then? Because wasn't it pretty big back in Seattle?
Well, it was, the whole startup era for the .coms. There's a lot of experimentation going on with it, and that's what really inspired me to do the show, is because a lot of people were seeing this interest in the internet and interest in what was happening with technology, and there just wasn't a lot of avenues or ways that people could learn about what's happening with the internet, because Correct. Most of the focus at the time was, like pets.com and also, or AOL, or these very rudimentary platforms that they're very early in the medium that really didn't help people understand what was really happening. So that's what I dug into, was cybersecurity and web browsers and what the pathway of wireless internet was going to go down, and what was happening to internet speeds across. I mean, at the time I started this show, most people were on dial-up modems at the time. So I had to dribble the content out to them at very low bit rates. So I had some streams that I was doing at the time that were like 9K. Now, if you're a content creator, you'll kind of look at me puzzled and go like, 9K, what's that? And I think what it really is that most of us now consume content at like 128K or even more than that in multiple megabytes, whether it's audio and video. But back then you couldn't deliver content much beyond like maybe 20K to most people because of the speed of their dial-up connections.
Yeah. I know. I'm listening and going, yes, I'm very familiar. I remember you used to put the phone on to dial up and hey, get off the phone. I'm trying to get on the internet.
Right. I can't get on the internet if you're talking on the phone. Right. Yeah. It was these party lines too, or always got in the way of that too.
So how did you look? I'm a purpose-driven. The last couple of years, one of the groups that we've been incorporated with is called Cup of Joey, and it was started out of startups. And it's a networking group. And one of the things that they have that we talk about is purpose instead of what you do. Why do you do it? And I'm always, since I've gotten engaged with that group about 3 or 4 years ago, it's been something that's driven me. I think that side note on our schools, I think we should do a better job of helping our kids understand what purpose is. So I'm curious, as you're talking about purpose, did that drive you, and did you connect with your purpose immediately within the career path you took?
I don't know if purpose was really on my mind at that moment. I think it was more just trying to, reach more people. I mean, I saw in the early years with this platform called the internet is a way for marketing messages, because I was a marketing major. I have been a marketing director at companies and have spent a lot of years working on the media side of things as well as a marketing person, not so much as a on-air kind of broadcaster or anything like that. So I've spent most of my career on the kind of like using it to reach people directly. And I saw what happened with the internet as a kind of a content marketing channel very early, because I could just tell, because I built the very first Florida Citrus website. This was back in 1996. Wow. And I used it to like do online promotions and giveaways of things like sailboats or recipes, or I was working with local grocery chains to put together campaigns that were kind of that folded in the internet into them, as well as billboards, bus boards, and TV and radio. And in all those messages that I created on all those mediums, I always had the floridajuice.com address, right? So I was driving a lot of attention to, if you want to get recipes or you want to get content, right? Essentially is what I was driving, or engagement, right? Which is, join the sweepstakes to win a 14-foot sailboat. And I gave away a half dozen of those off of the website through campaigns with, like a partnership with like Tropicana or Minute Maid orange juice. We kind of coalesced together to come up with a marketing campaign, and I would use the internet for that. And also built the world's largest glass of orange juice as part of that process too.
Wait, you did? Were you part of that?
Oh yeah. I built the world's largest glass of orange juice. Supposedly it was in the Guinness Book of World Records, but I think it was so long ago. I'm not sure that they actually remember. so that's
I
the problem
remember
with it.
That.
Yeah, if you go to robgreenlee.com, I have a section on my website that has information about the world's largest glass of orange juice on there, some pictures and things like that too. Yeah,
that cracks me up. No, that's awesome. Like, and we're talking about the internet, and now we've got AI that's come in.
Yeah.
I know for me, being a teacher and looking at it, it's something that we're concerned with our kids, but if used correctly, I believe it can help them study, and actually they can learn from me just from writing. Because I grew up in South Louisiana. I use X's on my words and stuff like that. So understanding how that you can, write was a struggle for me. Yeah. And as I've done some writing and some LinkedIn work and some stuff for school, it's helped me, but it's also a big trust issue. So two things, I guess, how can AI add value, and how can it build trust within our businesses or our community?
Yeah, I think it's a really highly controversial, difficult topic, because AI raises a lot of advantages, but it raises a lot of disadvantages at the same time. But that's not unusual for technology in general. I mean,
correct.
technology has the good with the bad. It's like the yin and the yang, right? It's the same thing. And I think AI is very much in that area. I'm sure you are too. And most people watching this are seeing just the flood of AI generated videos on a lot of the shorts platforms now. And that's part of, I think, what some of the leaders in social media have been saying for a while. And I know Elon Musk has even said this for a while too, is AI is going to pretty much create most of the content as we look to the future. It's probably going to be maybe a couple of years before it's, tremendously widespread, but it may happen sooner than we all realize. And we're going to create this kind of trust equation with what we see on the social platforms. Do we trust what it is? Is it authentic? Is it real? Or is it just fantasy? Right. And that's going to cause potentially a knee-jerk reaction over to the issue that's very much related to trust, right? Which is, humans are going to be the ones that have to have flaws in them, have to have aspects of them that will be almost like what I like to term proof of life, right?
I like that.
Which has not always been associated with AI, but I think it will be at some point here, is that your content, just like what we're doing right now, is an example of a human first creation, right? There's no AI associated with this. It's real. We may find over the next couple of years that what we are seeing here may be increasingly rare. And that may be a good and a bad thing, right? Because expectations are going to be elevated, right? People are going to see fantasy, and they're going to see stuff like we're doing right now, maybe increasingly maybe seen as maybe boring, right? I mean, it kind of depends on the dopamine fix that comes from anything that humans do. Is that going to ever equate to what the dopamine fix is in seeing, dancing cats, leaping off of Mount Everest or something? I don't, that's never going to match up. And it's unrealistic to think that it ever would, but it gets back to this fantasy content versus human, authentic, trusted content. And I think humans are going to increasingly gravitate towards spending at least an equal amount of time with authentic human trusted voices.
I would agree. I think, just in a lot of the research and a lot of the uses that I've done, being able to connect with the human is the piece. The technology is awesome. I'm a technology guy. I love technology, love learning about it. But it also can be a distractor if we let it. And I think AI can be the same thing. I walk around our school and I don't understand. Or I would go to the grocery store and I got adults with headphones on. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, where is that human interaction? And I think, like you're saying, I think it's going to be something we're going to gravitate to, that fantasy stuff, but the curve always comes back. We miss, and we're built on that connection. So if we're going to build trust, it has to be something that we can use. But AI may be able to give us the value of shortening the task that we have. Like I did my goals, my 2025 goals. I started working on them with ChatGPT, and the stuff that I was getting back, because I was having a conversation with it, it was able to help me expand my mind and look at other options that I wouldn't have in a much faster manner.
Yeah. And I mean, I find that as well, but I also go back in and I hand edit stuff too. So
absolutely,
I don't use it just straight out of there for anything, because it's sometimes missing context to my voice and my thoughts. And if I'm putting it out there representing me, it needs to be true to me and consistent with what others have heard from me in the past, leading up to that point. So it can't be so different. I do tell it to make sure that it puts it in my narrative voice, right? Based on what I've taught it to understand about it, what I write and what I think, and transcripts and those kind of things. And hopefully it will, over time, get better at that. But I'm never going to 100% trust it.
Agreed. And it's same. I do the same. I do the writings, and it has to be, because it doesn't have the emotions or the reactions or the story that we does. It's just machine learning. I mean, it's great, but it's still machine learning. There has to be that authenticity connection.
Yeah, it's just matching words to what it thinks is the most likely word that goes with that prior word.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
Right. So but there's some more intelligence going on behind the scenes. There's that machine learning element but it needs to learn more about you. Now, granted, that's a double-edged sword too, because the more that it learns about you, the more lacking you are in control of your information too. So there's kind of a two-edged sword on that one that we all have to decide. Do we want to be part of this, or do we want to be oppositional to it?
Oh gosh, I hope not. Look, we're getting close to the first break. So right before the first break, every show I've done, we talk about a book. Do you have a book? It doesn't have to be AI technology, anything, but a book that stands out for you that you would recommend?
Well, one is actually written by my partner and co-founder of the Passion Struck Network, and it's a book called Passion Struck, written by John R. Miles. And it really comes down to, trying to motivate people to go after their passions, and that lead into holding on to your meaning. So this is very corollary to what we're talking about here, is that humans need to have a purpose. And that's really the practical aspect of this book, is trying to extract that meaning, that kind of purposeful type of approach to life that's genuinely human. But that's not to exclude AI, but it's really, that's what the book is about that process. And that book is really foundational to what we're trying to build with the Passion Struck Network too, is that we're trying to work and network with other content creators that have this very common kind of principle to them, and that are out there kind of helping people understand how to maintain their level of mattering in the world, and their self-esteem, their purpose, right? And that is something that all of us are going to have to really hold on to. So that's the purpose of this book. It's called Passion Struck.
Passion Struck. I actually wrote it down. I'll look at that book, and if I can get it or listen to it, I'll do that. Yeah. And my book I want to do today is called Crucial Conversations. And it's a really good playbook about like when emotions are high and opinions clash, it's the outcome that actually matters. And it was a book that I read in a time where I was struggling with some things, going through a divorce or right after my divorce. Family was split. I was looking at a different business. And it was one of those things that it helped me understand that choosing silence or conflict, instead of choosing silence or conflict, which I would choose silence, I just wouldn't say anything. Yeah. It teaches you to create a safe and a kind of a safe dialogue that can turn tense conversations into progress conversations. And I sucked at it early on, but I tell you, like looking back, the books that I've read and the actions that I've done, I'm getting better. Maybe I'm just getting older. I don't know. But, I guess when you get older, you kind of create things and you don't hold your tongue as much. But, a couple of the takeaways that I wrote down were start with the heart. You get a clear of what you really want and be able to say it. Two, the second one would be make it safe. So mutual respect has always been something that has been a driving piece of me. So have mutual respect in the person that you're having a conversation with. And then make sure that you separate the facts, going back to AI, separate the facts from the stories and be very clear on what happened versus the meaning that you think it implies. So quick reset. Today is my 30th podcast. What Makes You Tick is an authentic, relaxed, purposeful conversation on trust, clarity, and traction, which is my why or my purpose. Why? To help incorporate your purpose in what you do on a daily basis and impact your life and others. How do we do this? By sharing business and personal stories of building culture of trust, creating a clear, impactful message as a leader with insights on how you can build traction within your life. Today, I'm having a great conversation with Rob Greenlee, and we're going to continue our conversation. Look, Rob, I do want to dig into AI a little bit in this segment, a little bit more. And right now we've talked about the trust and the issues. How can we use it to create clarity? Some of the research I've done in what I want to do is possibly take this to small and medium businesses. There's tons of things that you can do. Digging into it and learning it may be difficult for businesses, but how can we use it to create a clear path in what our business wants to be or what we want to accomplish?
Yeah, I think it's even beyond what AI is capable of doing. I think it's a lot of ways a human question. It's around trying to build trust through affirming language, right? Of understanding, and at the end of the day, that's kind of what it comes down to is that if you want to be a solution for others, you have to be able to listen and you have to be able to understand, right? And to be able to help people understand that you understand maybe what they're struggling with and what aspects of it maybe that you can assist with, right? To give a boost of confidence or a boost of perspective that can help them see that maybe they're not using the right language. Maybe use the language of, I understand what you're going through and I can relate because this happened to me as well. So, and I solved it through these two actions, right? Or I made some improvements, right? Solving it is never usually done by another person for another person. It's really giving people ideas on how they might be able to problem solve that to solve it for themselves. And I think that's part of that clarity, right? Of understanding and being able to tell someone that there is a pathway and to boost their hope that there may be a solution here, that they're not stuck in a endless loop of failure of sorts, that there is a path forward that you can try. And I can be here to help you with that. So that's kind of how I look at things. And I'm increasingly thinking more about that because, I think a lot of my, instruction or the things that I've told people in the past have been really too much rooted in my own experience instead of understanding what the other person's experience is and being able to interpret that. But that's usually in more of a one-to-one type of situation. That's why I like live so much, is that we can get that interaction with the audience and get those comments and those questions that add a little bit more clarity to the issues of the people that are watching. Because I don't always think of everybody's issues.
Right. No, and I love that. So as far as, because I'm the same way, like I've gotten much better at trying to understand people, because I think we have a tendency as humans to do exactly what you said. I relate my experiences to what you're going through, but it's a completely different perspective.
Right. It's only giving people ways to think it through that maybe are different than what they've thought about before. And it's more to do with how you speak to people about their issues and listening and, affirming that back to them, right? To say, you said this to me and I heard you, and that this is important information too. And I think you can use AI to take advantage of that to some degree, because, AI does hear a lot of different voices out there, and you might be able to extract from AI kind of like common issues that people are having. And you could create a framework of, it's almost like this concept of a Q&A, right? So you create a list of questions, and those questions come from core challenges that people have, and then let the AI answer them with ways that people have either solved those problems or prompt the AI to give you that list of commonly asked questions about whatever the topic is.
Right. And you can use that in a business, even if it's an issue that you have in your business, to be able to utilize. But the other piece of that is connecting it to the human piece.
Right.
We have, I think one of the challenges that we're going to see because of technology and because of what I'm seeing our youth go through, my own kids, some of the kids I've taught, I think one of the biggest challenges we're going to have is that disconnect. So we're going to get a little bit further from each other and get disconnected. AI can
Yeah.
help us, if we use it, to be able to find ways to reconnect with each other and to solve
Yeah.
challenges that we might not have ever thought about within our team.
Yeah, I think that we're not quite seeing what the full scope of the impact of AI is and how we're going to increasingly use it. I think in a lot of ways, it's going to basically absorb everything.
Mhm.
It's going to be how we function in the world. It's going to be how we create what's being called workflows of
Mhm.
sorts. And you're starting to see that in the AIs, but they're doing it behind the scenes. It's a little bit like RSS, right? So it's the computer communications that is really starting to come into AI increasingly, and it's this, it's the agents concept, right? It's the agentic workflows and things like that that will
Mhm.
actually solve problems, right? It'll actually do things in the real world. And I don't know that we're totally at that point yet. I think a lot of it's kind of hidden behind the scenes right now because
Mhm.
people are just wanting answers, right? So, and that's kind of where it's a little bit with like podcasting with RSS. People just want the episodes.
Mhm. Right.
They don't want to be worried about, how that episode information got into whatever platform that's out there. So, you know, this agentic concept that's going on in the AI space right now is just a transitionary phase because eventually everything, our phones, our cars, our devices will all connect to AI. You're already starting to see it happen with Microsoft Windows. They're
Yes.
increasingly integrating AI in there to create these workflows
Right.
to solve things and to do things and to create documents or to problem solve or create reports or make phone calls or book flights or I think that anything you can think of, AI will probably accomplish, especially if it's a repetitive task of some sort, or if it's a task that has to analyze a bunch of data out there to find out the best answer, right?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's good at that. Um, how much you're going to trust it to like book a flight to Europe or something like that for you, book the hotel, all that kind of stuff. I think is going to need your human approval before
Uh-huh.
it finally does that. But some people will trust it to just do whatever, right? But it's
Yeah.
a little bit of a trust reach at this point.
Oh, and I think we need to, fact check it. And I'm sitting here listening to you, and it feels like yesterday, sort of, when I was in high school, I had a basic class where learned how to communicate in BASIC and create programs in BASIC. And
Yeah.
now here we are talking about AI. I'm like, God, that's a long way away. All right. So would you consider yourself an expert in AI?
I don't know. I think I consider myself really to be a student of AI.
Okay.
Kind of like what I went through when I was doing my web talk radio show, where every week I would try new things. I would speak to people. I would use different tools, that kind of thing, to learn the process. So I don't know that I would qualify myself as an expert in AI necessarily.
Mhm, mhm.
It's more to do with I'm trying to become an expert in the human interface with AI more
Oh,
than
yeah.
anything, and how humans are going to be most likely to interface with it. Not unlike what I did with my nationally syndicated radio show, which is helping people understand
Mhm.
how technology is going to change their lives. That's where my interest is really more. It's not getting into the weeds of the AI necessarily. It's more to do with understanding how it's going to impact people, humans,
Mhm.
and how much of it eventually is just going to completely bypass humans, which is my next concern that's coming. But I don't think we're to that point yet where we have to worry too much about that. I think that's still maybe a couple years out,
Yeah.
where the AI is just going to do its own thing and it's going to be linked up with robots and it's going to be getting sensor data from outside sources other than just humans. Because right now, AI is getting all their information primarily from humans right now.
Okay.
And once we kind of move to the next phase where it's getting its own data, it's thinking independently of humans, it's doing things in the world and building things and creating new AIs independent of any human involvement. is where we kind of go to the next level. And that's where the AGI and ASI kind of concepts come into play here. And that is the era that it has me the most concerned because, well, I'm sure that the AI is going to be smart enough to protect its power plug, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Right. So humans will not necessarily be able to go up and just unplug the cord like we can with our computers here. So
yeah, unplug and shut it down. It just it's not going to work.
You've been bad. I'm going to shut you down. Right.
Yeah. You're taking my information and you're doing stuff with it. No. Yeah.
Right.
Those things there's concerns with that. It's funny, but as far as advice, like you've dug into technology and you've got an expertise in other things, podcasting, whatever you want to have. Have you ever, being a teacher, it's fun, and business development, I've done both, and being in them, you have all kind of people that you run across. So as a person giving advice, how would you give advice to somebody that is an expert on something, but talking to somebody that is not? How would you give them advice on how to approach that?
Well, I try and talk really in big picture terms, kind of like what I'm doing here is I'm trying to use language that people can relate to and people can associate to aspects in life. I know a lot of these AI PhDs and experts and stuff talk like they're AIs. They don't talk to humans really. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the conversations that I see in podcasts or on YouTube or whatever tend to be very technical into the kind of industry of AI and not really translating this into language or in concepts that normal everyday people can relate to. And so that's the struggle of this. And it was the same struggle with the internet in the early years too, is there was a lot of stuff going on at like Microsoft or Semantic or whatever around cybersecurity. There was just a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that couldn't easily be explained. And that's going on right now, but in some ways we're going through this in a very public way now. People are seeing this technology come at them because most people are used to technology now. Technology is a big part of their life now. So it's easier to talk to people about this because there's examples of technology from the past that is kind of relatable to what's happening now. And so that's kind of how I try and portray it, is trying to help people see what they understand now and translate it into the future. It's like this concept of, well, we're going to have devices still. It's just that the device is going to primarily focus on your interface with it to AI. It's not going to be a sea of apps anymore that's on your screen that you tap on and you go in and out of and things like that. It's going to be what the future looks like, in my view, and I've heard other people say this too, is that it's just going to be one interface. It's going to be a natural human interface. The question that I keep hearing is that people are going to say, well, people are going to talk to AI more. And I think while that's going to happen in some cases, we kind of went through that era with the smart speakers stuff. And I just don't think that many people want to talk to their AI. I think there's still going to be an interest in private typing, or there's going to have to be another way where AI is going to know what you're trying to do. And there's going to be signals that it's going to get from other places like your email and your calendar and your conversations over Zoom. And it's going to get context about what you're interested in doing from other sources other than me clicking a microphone button on an app and telling it, I want you to do this and that and that. It's going to figure out based on what your other conversations are, what your needs are, and it will offer to help with those things. So I think it's a different workflow that's going to happen with this that's different than what a lot of people are maybe thinking that it is based on where we are today.
Yeah, no. And we talk about trust and the building of trust and how all of this could erode it or it could strengthen it either way. It brings me to just a thought I had. How do you like building trust? And we run into this every day as humans, whether it's AI or whether it's another human. We run into different beliefs and different values in people. how do we build trust, or from what you're experienced, how do you build trust in all of that? Or if someone's got different values or beliefs than you do?
Well, I think trust comes from being trustworthy, and also being honest and saying what you're doing and following through with what you're doing, and coming across as a person that is genuinely trying to do the right thing. Right. So trust is something that's very complex. It's easy to lose trust very quickly. And it can happen in a bunch of different ways. It's probably easier to lose it than it is to gain it.
I would agree.
And it's really challenging to actually gain it in a way that scales rapidly. And I'm not sure that there's many examples of trust building that happens quickly. I think it happens over an extended period of time, where increasingly people are saying, really asking the question is how is trust built? Well, trust is built through repeated examples of things that this person does, or these concepts or these brands do, that holds on to that trust and doesn't break that confidence or that trust that I have in it to deliver on what it says. Yes. And to match with what my needs are, and deliver on those. Not unlike what we were talking about earlier around the clarity of, I think clarity is another way that builds trust too, is it means that you're listening to this other person or a group of people that have a common interest.
Yeah, that listening piece is huge. And I think sometimes it gets underrated. One of the things that it bothers me when people go, I'm going to make him earn trust or make her earn trust. I don't think, I think you give it. That's why you lose it more often, back to what you said. Because I think you give somebody trust, and then you find out what they do with it. As you do that, then to me, that helps to build it. I think AI, I think all the technology stuff is going to be the same way. My biggest fear with trust in AI is that people are going to trust it too much, and it's still a computer. Yeah. It still needs to be fact checked, especially nowadays. And it's, where we are in its infancy, or, growing into a toddler. But I think trust is a big piece of this. But let's do
it's not a perfection situation either.
Correct.
I don't know that it's possible for any one person or brand to build perfect trust. There's going to be examples where things don't work the way that the brand or the person has communicated that it should work. So failure is still part of the equation. I guess it gets back to is, well, did this person or brand give it a fair effort?
Yeah. It's funny you said failure, because failure is a human thing. Yeah. And that's how we earn trust more times than not, is to fail and go, my bad. I messed up.
But I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to improve and things like that. And that also builds trust too.
And it's a huge piece of something that I think a lot of times we miss out on, just as a human.
Yeah.
So let's do a quick reset. Thank you guys for listening to my podcast, What Makes You Tick. Rob and I are having an authentic, purposeful conversation on trust, clarity, and traction. If you have any questions, we'd love to have a little bit of, this will be, as we head into our last segment, we'd love to have a little interaction. If you got a couple of comments, any questions you may have, or something you want to ask or tell Rob, please let me know. Just send a message to it. Rob, what in the discussion so far is one thing that you would want to tell the audience? Just one thing.
Well, I think this conversation around creating content now is a very challenging kind of time right now. Podcasting is kind of, in its original form, is kind of struggling right now. So most people are being told that they need to be creators now. People need to publish content and put it out there. And there's a lot of consultants that are saying that it's all about frequency, and you got to flood the zone, and you got to put out a bunch of content out there. And I think that is maybe a little bit displaced and is being put out there for a reason that is benefiting the person that's putting it out more than it's benefiting the person that's hearing it. And
Yeah.
It's increasingly the content side now is around meaning, just like the concepts that we were talking about with Passion Struck and things like that. It's around meaning, relevance, and rooted in listening. And if you're talking about things or sharing experiences that are relatable and don't come out every day at 6 p.m., right? You can't manufacture human experience. You can't manufacture solutions. What you have to do is really think about them at the human level. AI is going to spit out a bunch of stuff at you around what your options are of reaching this market and communicating a certain story to them, but it's not going to really understand the minor subtle levels that are important that really psychologically connect with another human being. It's not human, so it doesn't really have that level of cognitive ability.
Right. No, and there's still got to be some listening. Again, we'll go back to connection. You have to have that human connection. I feel like a lot of things, because of what I've gone through the last couple of years, this segment that I've been in just to kind of stay alive, I've missed those connections. In my job, I get fulfilled certain ways, but there's still these connections that I experienced. As a human, I miss those. I have to imagine that there's a lot of people out there that still feel the same way, and they're missing that connection, that human interaction that you constantly. This is great, but honestly, I'd rather be sitting in a room with you and I having conversation. It's more personable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what advice?
That's not happening as much now. People aren't meeting at Starbucks and having a cup of coffee talking about, life and your experiences quite as much anymore either. That's the thing that's changed.
So what tip would you give if we're going to move forward? You can have one tip to give anybody. What would you give?
I would just say, if you're going to be a content creator, I would just focus on really listening to who you want to reach with whoever the market is that you're trying to reach to, and really get in the weeds of understanding what their interests are and what their needs are or what they're struggling with. And draw some clarity on that, and that'll help you formulate, your approach to the market. That maybe it is fewer social media posts and fewer content, but the content that you're making is more impactful because it's more relatable to the market that you're trying to reach.
Mm-hmm. It's funny you say that, because that's exactly, I've been debating. I post quite often on LinkedIn. I'm more LinkedIn than I am a Facebook person, but and I see a lot of people that do the same thing. But some of the best posts I read are ones that come out maybe a couple times, once a week, or it's more impactful than just flooding it with constant.
Yeah, like every day something coming out, because I'm sure that the quality of that isn't going to be good, or it's being spit out by AI, one of the two.
Or both, yeah. No, and it's funny, because I'm like you. I have to, and I know other people that are like this, and I find it really impactful and it's purposeful. Is if I use AI to do something, I have to put my own spin on it. It has to be in my voice, and there's always something, even when I read it. It's gotten pretty good at learning me, but still at the same time, in my experience, I have to be able to change something. I have to add something because I missed something, Right.
Well, you have to be able to be, like a stand-up comedian, to be a little bit more spontaneous and share things in a different way than you normally would. Right. I mean, normally when I do podcasts like this, I try and bring a different perspective to everything that I do. Right.
Yes.
And it all needs to be rooted in the same kind of core brand of who I am. But yet at the same time, it's not always the same stories. It's not always the same thoughts. It's not always the same, because if I do 10 different interviews, a week, each one of those has to be different. Else people are going to say, well, I've already heard that 5 times already. Why would I listen to it again? So,
right. Yeah. And you never know each content is different. Each topic's different.
Well, each host is different, and what they want to extract from this. But at the end of the day, it's kind of up to me as a guest to pull it back and say, well, what am I bringing to this? I mean, how am I helping the audience that this podcast has to help them and add value to them. Now, granted, I haven't listened to your audience and I don't know their thoughts and what they share with you. So I'm a little bit at a disadvantage here, but I'm just trying to bring something that's unique based on your questions, but yet, believable too, and also authentic as best as I can.
Look, and that's honestly, that's what I want my audience to hear is I don't, and because, we talk, I always try to log on 15 minutes before and start the conversation. So we're rolling into a conversation as we go. But, like I told you, there's a couple of things I want to talk about on this show that I don't want to talk about before because I want it to be real.
Yeah.
Because
you don't want to rehash something you already talked about, right?
Yeah, I don't want to set you up and make you think about it and then come up with a perfect answer. I want it to be real because there's not enough of that.
Right.
Now, Jerry Springer, that's a different story. That was, we had that conversation last week. That was funny. Yeah, and look, I work with, I'm around people all the time. And one of the groups that we were talking about, Cup of Joey and some of the groups here, you listen to people in their dreams. This is kind of a two-part. I'd love your advice on one. Is this the path that you've been on? One, was it your dream? And two, if somebody's looking to turn those dreams into reality, what advice would you give them?
Well, I don't think any of this was my dream. I think at the end of the day, it really was about me following an interest that I had out of college. It was really about trying to build a career around business of sorts. Mm-hmm. And I just let the opportunities and my interests take me where it flowed. And it just so happened that I graduated college at a time when the internet and technology was starting to evolve and develop. So I just, over a progression of roles and jobs and things like that, I started to move more and more into tech stuff, just because that's where the opportunities were. I worked for a handful of .com startups in the early years. So I got sucked into that world very early. Even while I was doing the radio show, I always had a full-time job working for a .com startup or a technology startup through that whole time frame. Mm-hmm. I never worked on my radio show as a full-time thing, really. At the end of the day, it was kind of like a lunch break type of recording situation, and then back to work again, and then a Saturday morning program. So most of that work in the past, that was prior to me getting a full-time job working in downtown Seattle back in 2005, working at a tech startup company that was currently doing mobile apps for music for pre-smartphones. So this was back in 2005.
Wow.
And that company wanted to convert their catalog from music to podcasts.
Okay.
So they hired me to come in and build out all their catalogs of content. Since I had built a reputation as being involved in the podcasting medium, and was on the radio, that was a very much of a crossover era back then. Mm-hmm. And so I built a bunch of podcasting catalogs for different wireless carriers all over the world. So in different languages and all this stuff in the very early years of this prior to the iPhone. So it was, talk about streaming at low bit rate. I was streaming at like 7K on that platform because a lot of the Razor phones back in that era in the 2005, 2006 timeframe didn't have fast data plans. They, they were trickling data to them.
Mm-hmm. I remember that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get, can I get a, wait,
yeah.
I don't have a, I don't have a sit. Wait, I got a bar.
Yeah. So I really just kind of phased into it over a subsequent years. And then I did 2 years there. And then I got hired by Microsoft to run the Zoom podcasting platform, doing a lot of the same kind of work, building catalogs and working with content creators. And I was a content creator myself, coming into it, so I could relate to the radio side, which was a big part of the industry back in those days. Was the larger media companies were heavily involved in podcasting in the early years too.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the one thing that you have, that you've done that you go, man, I was extremely fortunate and I loved doing that? What's the one thing that, just pick one thing?
Well, I think I was lucky because I was able to do it, fall into this at a time when there weren't a lot of people doing it at the time, and make a career out of it. Now there's lots of people with careers in podcasting and online media now, and it's a very competitive landscape now. But back in those days, I was very early because I was thinking ahead, right? I was thinking about what the opportunities of this, and I was getting myself involved in working in platforms that were kind of at the leading edge of online media at that time, and found myself getting, a higher and higher profile and getting opportunities that were very few and far between. I was like the only guy at Microsoft that had a job working on podcasts. So it was one of those things that, not that many people would have. So in a lot of ways, I consider myself to be very lucky that I got picked for that role, because my path in my career would have been quite different if I hadn't been.
Oh, no, that's okay. So we're getting close to then. We got a couple more minutes left, but I just like, as you're talking, I keep thinking of things that interest me. Why is it called a podcast? Where did the name come from?
Well, it was invented, actually coined by a reporter who worked for The Guardian. Actually, he actually was a guest on my radio show 2 weeks before he wrote an article in The Guardian that was talking about this downloadable radio shows concept, and threw out 3 names of what this medium could be: a downloadable radio show or a downloadable piece of content, what we could call it, because it didn't have a name at the time. It was just an MP3 file that was downloaded at the time, and this was like in 2000, late 2006 timeframe is when this all kind of went down. And so he wrote this article that had 3 optional names. One of them was like audio blog. One was podcasting. And I think the other one was, I can't remember what the third one was, but podcasting was one of them. And that's the one that got picked up. And at the time, the iPod was very, very big. So people saw that term pod, and people really kind of rallied around that name, and it started to pick up steam. And Adam Curry, which I've known for many years, picked up the ball on it. And he and Dave Weiner, who was one of the inventors of RSS, kind of brought to the RSS spec this enclosure tag. That basically enabled podcasting to happen, because then you could put a link to an MP3 file in the RSS feed, and all these feed readers could pick up that MP3 file and play that audio or play a video. In the early years, they could also download a PDF file too. So it was a kind of a multi-purpose type of a thing that happened back then, and it just grew from there, and it became something more and more important. And a lot of the big media companies wanted to jump on the bandwagon, and that's what happened. And then we went through a period of time when all those major media companies started to pull the plug on it too, because they didn't know how to monetize it, and it was costing them money as they were growing audience, and they couldn't cover those expenses. So a lot of them bailed out of it back in like 2009, 2010. On the video side, especially, and people moved over to YouTube. So, right.
Yeah. And I remember, I remember that back then when it got big. I was not a big podcaster back then, but it's funny because we had the same conversation. How do you monetize this? Because it always comes down to that. Like, is it fun? Is it for money? I don't know. But one of the way I always in the guest portion of the show or end our conversation is with me being in education, having a background with kids for a long period of time, which I never thought I would, because my dream was to play for the Houston Astros.
I played college basketball myself. So
did you really?
Yeah.
What position?
Center and power forward.
Oh God, dang! So you were under the bucket a lot.
Yeah, right. I was also getting knocked around quite a bit too. Well, I was I'm tall. I'm 6'8", so it came in handy
Wow.
to be tall and work down toward the key where you get all the rebounds and all the putbacks.
we were watching the Rockets the other day. While I got a friend of mine that went to the U of H and LSU, which is me growing up in Baton Rouge. I'm an LSU fan. So they were playing. So he and I got together, watched the game, and the Rockets were on. And we were talking about Kevin Durant. He's 7 foot shooting fall away 3-pointers. That's just unheard of.
I know. Yeah. It's unusual for a big guy to be shooting 3-pointers. I agree with you on that.
That's crazy. Like, real quick, before we go, I do want you to, I always ask, what advice would you give our younger generation? And since you're in tech, let's talk tech. What advice would you give them?
Well, I think it's really a tough choice now, because I'm not sure that tech as a career is going to be what we all think it is going to be as we look to the future. It's not going to be quite like what it has been.
Right.
And there may be a situation where there may not be as many tech jobs per se. And I think that the inverse reaction of that is that increasingly people are having to become stewards of their own destiny of sorts, and increasingly technology experts and technology focused people now are creating their own companies. They're starting their own businesses of sorts, as these tech companies are going to, start utilizing AI to replace employees. And so, individuals are going to have to use AI to do the same thing, I think, is what's going to wind up happening, is that they're going to have to build 1 or 2 person companies to solve a problem in the world using technology.
Right.
But you may not have to be like a technology engineer or a programmer to accomplish that with AI.
No, I love that. Look, it's been fantastic. Please, let's connect. Follow the show on it was live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and then I'll download it on the Spotify afterwards. Rob, please share any information that the audience can find you, or how they can get and connect with you or follow you.
Yeah, I think it's really simple. I mean, I've got my own personal website at robgreenlee.com, and that's the best place. I also have a YouTube channel at Rob Greenlee, and then I'm also on LinkedIn. I also have a podcast network called Adore Podcasts, or actually it's adorenetwork.com. And then I also am working on the passionstrucknetwork.com platform as well. And then, off of my robgreenlee.com has all my podcasts and stuff like that I'm doing. But the regular tech show I've been doing for 13 years now is called the New Media Show. You can kind of see the logo back here for it. That's a show that I've been doing for over 13 years. Wow. My former co-host passed away in September.
Oh my goodness.
That I've been doing that show with for all these years, but I recently brought the show back, and I think I'm on my 4th episode coming up here in January of bringing that show back.
Okay.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Look, Rob, thank you for being my guest on What Makes You Tick.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. It's a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. No, that's awesome. Look, let's make an impact in our lives and our communities through trust, clarity, and traction. Let's be transitional over transactional. You can find me on LinkedIn. Stay connected for future episodes. Look for the recording for a deeper conversation here. Rob, again, it's been amazing. Find and connect with my friend. Look him up. Join me next week with an amazing conversation at the beginning of the year. My guest will be up in the air right now because I've had a couple people back out. So look, honestly, if you want to be on it, reach out. I have an opening. I plan to fill it in the next couple of days. I do have a couple of feelers out there. As soon as it comes on, as soon as I get it, I'll put a post out there for you. Go and have a fantastic week and enjoy the beginning of the new year. See ya.